I was saying, we were speaking last time of Abdul Baha, son of Baha'u'llah, who came out of jail after 40 years of imprisonment and who carried on his father's mission and established Bahaism as a religion accepted by millions of people. Mother had very friendly relations with Baha, and she participated in number of meetings held at his headquarters. She found him very pleasant, sincere, and open. Once it so happened that when she called on him, he was to give a talk, but somehow he was not well, and he told Mother that you give the talk today. She said, but I don't know, I don't belong here. He said, it doesn't matter, you sit in the sitting room for a while and then go and you will speak. Mother did as she was told, and she was surprised at what she had said at the talk. She gave one or two other talks also, and the main points in her talks were the practical efficacy of the teaching, whatever the teaching. Ultimately, all great teachers have certain common truths which they proclaim, but unless these truths are lived in action, they shrink. They are no more living. They remain theories and do not have a force of effectuation. That is what has happened in India. All of us, at any rate most of us, mouth the phrases, whether they are the Mahavakyas from the Upanishads or the mantras from the Vedas or words of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. We repeat them, we talk about them, but do we live them? Mother had always attached importance to live what you say. She emphasized right from those days that not words, but acts. It is acts that speak, not words. And Sri Aurobindo pointed out later on that though the path is laid, the path is shown, it is you who have to tread the path. And it is in the manner of treading the path that there arises your speciality. No two people walk in the same gate. No two steps are the same. The path may be the same, but the way you treat it is different. And you can appreciate it only when you try. At that, when you do this, you will no longer say, all truth is one, all roads lead to Rome. But there are short roads and long roads, direct routes and meandering routes. It depends upon how you walk on the path. And Abdul Baha used to say that words are no use without action. Second point, which we discussed in a way last time, to be an example to the world. Not an example in learning, example in achievements, accomplishments, but in certain specific ways. For instance, showing the way to harmony and peace. That is the most important plank of conduct, particularly for spiritual seekers. We cannot have harmony unless we attune ourselves to the atmosphere of those around us. If we always go on riding the high horse, always insisting on our right, being right, there is bound to be conflict. Maybe the conflict may not be expressed, very expressive, but all the same there is a certain resentment. So harmony cannot be established as long as you function on the wavelength of ego. And ego always drives you on its own chosen route, regardless of the consequences in the general functioning of the society or the community. And without harmony, you cannot have peace. Peace, in Mother's conception, is not absence of conflict. It is something positive. It is something liberative. And where there is real peace, there are always waves going about, whether you are there or not, they spread. And if there are not too many people in the environs, they become solidified. That is what happens. Those, some of you at least must have noted, near our samadhi, the samadhi in the ashram building. There are times when things are dispersed, lots of people going about with their chores, rituals. You don't have that perceptible impact of the peace. But there are times when there are very, very few people. Say during the midday hours, between 1 and 3, or at night, after 9, where there are fewer people. And you will see that the vibrations of peace cannot be missed. They are so powerful. So peace is something very positive. It has a concrete effect on those who come near it. And these vibrations of peace emanate not only from centers like the samadhi, but even in certain locations like particular hills. There is the famous hill of Arunachala. It is a condensed figure of peace. Anyone who does not even believe in spirituality, if he has an open mind, is bound to be attracted as by a magnet when one passes by that hill. It is considered to be one of by geologists as the oldest mountain on earth. And the Andes in South America have identical soil. There was a time when there was continuous mountain range before the ocean broke in. Now that hill emanates peace. And that is going on for centuries. That is the positive nature of peace. It is common for people to say that all this is well for teachers, the masters, the avatars, but not for us. We are ordinary human beings, and to practice all this high teaching is hardly practicable. Mother says that these are words of indolence. We are too lazy. We don't want to make an effort, and we want to justify our indolence by saying that this can be done only by Superman. But that's not true. The third point that she makes is that each individual has a special role. Everyone is not cut out to perform in the same way, the same job, the same work. Each one has his style of doing, the way of functioning, and according to the speciality marked out for him shall be his life. Now, what is that special role? We have already discussed that, and how it is not possible for common individual people to find out. They usually take the help of a competent teacher to find out what is the special role they have to play. And once you know it, one has to develop it to perfection. Everyone, she says, has the potentiality of perfection. Whatever the weaknesses, the deficiencies of nature, within there is that ingot of gold. She gives the example of mineral, a mineral stone, how it needs lot of working upon it, polishing it, before you see the ore of gold in it. And every individual has to work upon oneself to release the pure gold in his being. In the process, we discover that there are two categories of action. One, mental formation. Mental formation is the thought activity. Nothing that we do is without some background of thoughts. So this thought activity is one category that we have to pay importance to. And the second, she says, is activity in sleep, and that is dream. The thought activity has direct relation to the dream activity. Because after all, what we dream can be traced to our thought currents. Not necessarily in the immediate moment. It's not that I'm going to dream what I have thought about during the day, but over the time, over the weeks, even over the years, whatever thoughts pass through, they make a registration in my consciousness, whether I am aware of it or not. And those thought currents which have registered themselves in the subconscious, they rush up in dreams. So if you want to control your dreams, you have to learn to control your thought during your waking hours. Thoughts have a great importance because, even as Buddha said, thoughts can give birth to active entities. It is not that I get a thought, I change over to another thought, and that previous thought is gone. It does not. It sails into the atmosphere. So each thought is a vibration, is a certain output of energy. And as we know, no energy can be destroyed. It may change its forms, but it goes. So thoughts give birth to active entities. And any thought or desire, when intense, determines its own formation. A casual thought, it can be cancelled by another casual thought, my own or my neighbor's. But a concentrated thought has a habit of acquiring a body. That is why we have the custom of repeating a concept, repeating a word again and again. That is stabilizing what stands behind the thought, what stands behind the word in the atmosphere. And every state of substance is a world of living forces. Anything that we see, any condition, any formation is not just what it seems. It is a world of living forces. The material appearance, the materiality is not the only order of existence. There are various orders of existence. And to understand fully the meaning of what takes place on the material plane, we have to develop a discipline of going beyond the material plane. Mother illustrates how to understand the nature of light, for instance. The scientists had to break through the material formation and break into ether, and there find certain explanations. If this is the force of an individual's thought, you can imagine what it can be when there is a collective force of ideals, collective force of thoughts. When a number of individuals meet and have predominantly the same thought, same nature of thought, it is bound to generate a certain intensity of force. So an idea generates an idea force, and the idea force, number of idea forces build up a living creation. And meetings, collective sessions are as successful as the shape we give to it. If they are just meetings where one person talks and a number of people spend their time listening and then forget it the next day or the next moment, it doesn't amount to much. She says, unite thoughts around a lofty idea, create an atmosphere which is luminous and strong. If there is meditation, after a reading, after a discussion, then a certain atmosphere is generated. You breathe that different air. But she says, do not plunge back into heavy atmosphere, common atmosphere afterwards. The moment if we come out of the room, we start discussing politics, discussing the weather, discussing some social phenomenon, well, we sink into inconscience. And to make the meetings meaningful, we have to have someone who can lead. One who can lead, one who builds up in himself the meaning of what he is going to teach, of what he is going to say. She speaks of two kinds of masters. One who initiates, gives a word, gives a mantra, and let the person develop his life. The second is, he does not care to communicate a mantra, to give the formal initiation, but by his very presence, there is a transmission of spirituality. This is what is called in the Tantras Shaktipat. When such a powerful person even sits or walks, there is a spontaneous emanation of spiritual force, and it impacts on people, whether the person concerned, the central person, is aware of it or not. If he is aware of it and directs his glance, that's another matter. That's one way. But very often, the person is just spontaneous, and it happens. This is the direct transmission of spirituality. Ultimately, it depends upon the sincerity of the individual. It is not numbers that matter, but the quality. Mother speaks of a Chaldean tradition which says that if 12 persons united in righteousness, they will manifest the ineffable. Put it in other words, as she explained once, if 12 sincere people gather and aspire for the divine is bound to manifest. And she remarked that she had not been able to do. She had not been able to gather 12 disciples of that sort. She was told, but Mother, you have got 1,000 people. She said, yes, but as children. She told this to Chamanlal Gupta, who wrote that famous book, Hindu America. Summing up, she points out that collective suggestion makes certain favorable movements in the atmosphere. Instead of an individual suggestion, if a number of people pick up that suggestion, think about it, dwell upon it, it generates a force of its own. And there are occasions, like anniversaries, like beginnings of the new year, where opportunities for renewals are offered. They are special moments because you are offered an opportunity to renew your resolution or your determination. And from that moment, all things can be new. It is not true that nothing can change, all is a habit. It's not true. Every moment carries a seed of newness. The tact lies in capturing that moment and not going back to the past. And meetings at fixed time, punctual, they are very helpful to make favorable resolutions. And then she says, each morning when you get up, before you start the day, you think of the saviors, the masters who have served, helped humanity. Trust and have a thought of gratitude to them. Immediately, you will find that their presence responds to your call. Because these, they are not really dead. Their bodies may not be there, but their personalities, the concentrations of consciousness which they embodied, they continue in the universal atmosphere. And they respond. Their light and love will imbue your life during the day, provided you call, you think, and invoke them for a moment, not as a mechanical ritual, but as a living call. So ultimately we come to the same point, and that is to make the teaching living, to live what you read, to live what you preach. And that is the key to any spiritual life. Not so much reading, not so much hearing, but putting into practice even a fraction of what you have known. And that is the point where I think we can stop for the next session.